Well, hello everyone, Texie88 here, and welcome to another review. And now I'm bringing out Rainbow Arts 1990 release Crossout. Now, the title on the box and on the loading introductory animated bit seems to be calling it X Out, but during that bit it does actually call the game Crossout in when a character says get ready for Crossout. And so if you're wondering why I'm calling it Crossout verbally, that's why. And when you start, you get this screen in which you can choose a selection of ships and arm them as you choose, money permitting. The money is this number here, which is also your score. So I'm going to put this ship here as it's the cheapest one, and I'm gonna. No, I won't get that one. Actually, it's a bit. Well, I'll see how much this is. 300 and. Yeah, I'd go for that one. It probably isn't as powerful, but it's a lot less costly. And you can have these options. You can choose what kind of options you have, how they behave. And you've got a certain degree of control over where they're positioned as well. I can't afford that. Actually, I think I'll do away with that. It's too expensive. So you can put quite a bit onto a ship. The downside is that does leave you with fewer lives. Actually, I'll see if I can pick a cheaper one. No, that's even more expensive. Actually, I think I'll position that a bit further forward. And when you're done, you just click on this. I mean, you can choose to buy one ship and arm it to the teeth, or you can just buy several ships. So you've got to trade off between lives and armament. So bit of a stark, it's a bit of a stark contrast, really. And the music in this, given it's a Rainbow Arts game, is, you probably won't be surprised, composed by the legendary German composer Chris Hülsbeck. And as ever, he puts in a brilliant job. And so what Crossout is, it's a horizontally scrolling shooter, and it takes place underwater. And you get that shop between each level. So any points that you manage to pick up in the previous level, you can put towards more lives or more weapons. But remember, because I only bought one ship, I've only got the one life. Somewhere this doesn't cater for 2-button sticks, unfortunately. So in some cases, you have to just hold down the fire button in order to be able to. And you've got an energy bar, which is that yellow horizontal bar just above at the very top of the main score panel at the bottom of the screen. Once that's completely drained, you lose the ship that you're having. Whether you get to continue depends on whether or not you bought any second and subsequent ship in the shop, or more to the point, whether you could actually afford to. It's really well animated for a game from 1990, and as ever, Chris Husbeck does some pretty good tunes. Although I still think my favourite music of his is in the game called Apidia. I love the sound effect of that of that charge weapon. As you can see, you can shoot those homing missiles. And the controls are really good. The hit detection's good. Right, I've destroyed that one. Would have preferred if I got more points for it, given how long it took to blow the thing up. And I just took a pretty nasty hit from that submarine. Oh, I took a hit just then. I can't get that. I haven't got a means of getting something that's behind me. Tiny bit of slowdown just then when there was a lot on the screen, but I've seen worse slowdown even on 16-bit machines. No. Right, now I've got to do this boss and I've only got one life. First thing I tend to do is take out these tube things. Right. Oh! That wasn't very good. Pretty challenging game, especially in the opening when you might not be able to afford an awful lot. Well, may not be able to afford, you can't afford an awful lot. Like I said, it's a stark choice between buying several ships and being able to do very little in terms of arming them, or... No, I didn't manage to get onto the high score table. I believe those are the names of people who are involved in the production of Crossout, and because I noticed that Chris was one of them, which I'm pretty sure is a reference to Chris Husbeck. As well as this Amiga version, it was also brought out for the Atari ST, the ZX Spectrum, the Amstrad CPC and the Commodore 64, although in the case of the Commodore 64 version, that came out in 1989, a year earlier than this version and all the other ports. So let's see. So that one's worth 4,000. So that one's worth 5,000. And that one's worth 6,000. That's a bit expensive, actually. So I'll just get 2 of that particular ship, and you just cycle. And I'm just... And I'll just switch to the other one. And actually, I think I'll get that missile for the other one because it's got less. So now I've given myself 2 lives, but on the downside is I've 2 lives because I bought 2 ships. The downside is because of my limited funds, I couldn't arm them as much as I could when I was playing through the previous game. So you can see what I was trying to explain, that you've got a stark choice between picking lives and picking weapons. I mean, obviously, the more lives you have, the fewer points you'll have left to fit them with weapons beyond the standard single shot. But at least if I lose a ship, I'll still have the other one to continue with. So I do have 2 lives in this. So that's cool. That's quite a comprehensive shop sequence, and so this is the one which had the lowest style of armament. You can tell by the colour of the shots, because the colour of the shots I bought for the more expensive version of the 3-way had a light blue colour. The downside is it's more expensive, so I get the feeling it's a more powerful version. Oh god, that was a massive hit I took just then. Oh gosh. Pretty challenging game. So you've got to keep your wits about you, especially if you've bought only 1 life, because like I did in the previous game, because that was all I could afford with how much I'd armed the. I mean, that shop sequence, it really does work so well, even though it doesn't exactly give you much help to be able to afford decent armaments. And I've got very little health left on this particular ship. Damn it! See, this is my other ship, which I armed with a heavier duty main gun. I've lost that homing missile though. See how the arms of my ship are sort of pulsating in and out. There's little details like that that also add an extra element of attention to detail that the Factor 5 Rainbow Arts put into this game. What is Factor 5? I don't know. I know that Factor 5 did do some of Rainbow Arts' other games, like the Turrican games, but as for whether or not Factor 5 were involved in this, I really don't know. I believe this game has 8 levels, and of which this is the first level. Yeah, and the downside is when you haven't got much in the way of extra weapons, it does take longer to deal with boss characters, and I've just taken a massive hit again. Yeah, everything works really well, and is that you get music and sound effects as well, so which is you do get it sometimes. It's just because the Amiga only had 4-channel sound. Sometimes the quality of the music suffered due to the loss of a particular channel whenever a sound effect had to take over. But the Amiga is still a very technically impressive machine for its time, and I'm very close to dying. I reached that boss again, but I've got only a tiny sliver of energy left. If this thing so much as breathes on me, I'm a goner. Right. Oh! It didn't quite do the same thing that it did last time. So that's Crossout for the Commodore Amiga. Pretty decent shooter, all things considered, especially for the time it came out. I mean, that shop sequence is and the fact that it's in underwater setting is probably what helped to set it apart from other shooters of its epoch. Yeah, it's really hard to get onto the high score table unless you do really well, and especially as you start off with 12,000 points, which, as I said, counts towards your money in the shop sequences. So unless you were to literally go in with bare bones one ship on that and not even remotely power it up at all, good luck trying to get onto this high score table unless you're really good. And see, it also says cross out there. That's another reason I know that this game's called cross out and not X out. Graphics, pretty good. Nice moody underwater setting with that murky green colour giving it that oceanic look, which is really good. And the things are well animated as well. You saw little touches on the ship that I was controlling, which also helped to elevate it above just the bare minimum required to be effective. The sound is fairly good. These aren't the best music samples I've ever heard. I mean, Chris Husbeck later did far better quality music when he came to do the music in Apidia, for instance. And 1990 was also the year in which the first Turrican came out, and we all know how wonderful the music in that is. And that also had superior sound samples to this. But the music itself, it seems to be pretty good. It's just not my favourite Husbeck composed music, but it's certainly not terrible. But obviously that's all going to be an acquired taste. Some of the sound effects I would have preferred if they were a bit meatier as well, but I'm wondering whether this could have been another case of an Amiga being subjected to an ST port. I've not, at the time of doing this review, I've not seen the ST version, so I don't know for definite. Gameplay, well, the ship controls really well. There's no sluggishness nor a lack of response to the controls, and everything seems to work out really well. Hit detection is generally very good, and it is quite challenging, which might put people off in the early stages because you can quite often only afford one ship, two if you're lucky at the very beginning, especially if you want to beef up your arsenal by any great degree. I mean, it would have been nice if there could have been perhaps an easier difficulty setting where you've got a bit more money to spend in the shop to start with to give yourself a fighting chance. So overall I'm going to give Crossout on the Amiga 7 out of 10. It's not terrible, but it's difficulty due to the fact that you can't really afford an awful lot to start with. Is a bit of an issue, but other than that, it's a pretty solid shooter, and I think a lot of people would enjoy it. Perhaps not as much as some other games that would come out later, or even around the same time, but there are far worse games than this Crossout out there, and the underwater setting in that shop does make it a bit different to the norm. So 7 out of 10 for Crossout on the Amiga. Hope you enjoyed this review. Catch you on another one soon. Texie88 out.